Hello and what's up you guys. So in today's video I'm going to react to a YouTuber who sold all his Palantir stocks, and I was sick when this happened and I wanted to do a reaction video, but I was too sick, and now it's a red day. Nothing is really happening other than the whole market crashing and the world is burning down, and Palantir is probably minus 4% today and Tesla is minus 4%. So I've seen better days. But anyways, I thought today would be a perfect day to go through his video and see why this guy sold and what my opinion is on it. And as always, if you like this content, please make sure you hit the subscribe button. And if you want to go further, check out the first link in the description box below, which is for our Patreon, where you can support the channel for $5 a month and get direct access to me and all the valuations that we use on this channel. So let's go.
Hey guys, it's Sasha. 3 days ago, I made a video about Palantir's Q2 results, and that earnings call was right up there with the worst I have ever listened to. I mentioned in that video that I'm going to do some maths, and the likely outcome is that I will be selling my Palantir position.
So first of all, have you seen this earnings call? Because I really don't like that some YouTubers say that this earnings call was a disaster, when I think that the management team did pretty good. And other than the numbers could have been better, I don't really have much to add. So let me know in the comments, did you think that they were a catastrophe on the earnings call, or do you think it was an okay earnings call?
And the very next day, I did exactly that. I have now sold out of Palantir in every single one of my portfolios, and I am now an ex-shareholder of Palantir. And I know there are going to be a whole load of Palantir fanboys out there in the comments below thanking me for selling them shares at a discount, maybe in somewhat more colorful language. There'll be plenty of insults thrown and me being told that I just don't get it. Please feel free to peruse the comments for the best backholder reactions and do your worst against each other. But in this video, I am going to explain exactly why I have sold my position. I'm not telling you what you should do. I'm just sharing my opinion, what's changed in my personal valuation of the company, and why I do not like the optics for Palantir. I have sold most of my Palantir positions at a loss, and I had to pay a whole load of fees for the privilege of doing so. So I did not make this decision lightly, although I could have avoided paying all of those fees if I just bought Palantir using Lightyear, who are the
sponsor time. So to not bore you guys with this, let's skip through this and we go back to the
risk. So Palantir reported their results on Monday morning, and the results themselves were not good. There were a few problems in the results. First, Palantir took a $200 million hit on their investments in SPACs so far this year, and this is somewhat representative of the overall approach. $139 million out of that $200 million loss came in just the last 3 months.
I don't know why this is an issue, because if you invest in a stock as a company, it has nothing to do with the business and the whole growth market. It's not that they invested into something that didn't do as bad as the rest of the growth market. Just look at ARK Invest and Cathie Wood. And I basically did calculations based on the data that they reported, and I was expecting a 200 million loss. So this is not new, and it was known, and this has nothing to do with Palantir's future production. Sure, they have made a bad investment decision, but who hasn't? Let's be honest.
At the end of Q2, Palantir only has $99 million left from those investments. And on page 34 of their 10Q, they say they may continue to sell some or all of our existing investments. I highlighted this exact issue last year when they were basically gambling hundreds of millions of dollars on completely random SPAC investments for seemingly no good reason. And some of that spend was way worse than gambling, because Palantir invested money in companies who then bought Palantir services using the money that Palantir just gave them. Do you see the weirdness in that relationship? So
the weird geniusness? I don't know. This is again something that was known, and I am a investor, right? So if somebody comes to me and says, look, you can invest into this thing who's going to give money to your company, and then if it's, you know, your company is going good, then the value of your investment is going to go up. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that when they did it, it was a good risk reward. And I do see the logic in it. I mean, obviously there's risk in investing into stocks, and this was fully disclosed, and I don't see what's the issue. And it was a very small part of Palantir's revenue.
Palantir goes and gives the company a whole boatload of cash. Those companies then paid the cash back to Palantir to add to Palantir's revenue numbers. And now Palantir has written 2/3 of those investments off already and sold out of some of these SPACs and say that they are maybe going to continue selling out of the rest. If you want to find out exactly which ones it is that they have sold, you can't. In the Q2 report 12 months ago, you could see the exact investments they were making at the time because, hey, times were good and stocks were only going up. $41 million went to this one company you've never heard of at $10 per share, and that company is now at $2.76. Another $35 million went into Wejo or Wejo, I don't know, at $10 again, now worth $1.68. Then another $35 million into Babylon Health. Oh, that one lost 91% of its value and now trading at 90 cents. Every single one of those SPACs has absolutely collapsed in value, most by around 80 to 90%. But of course, they no longer print that table, so you have no way to find out for yourself. Because
okay, I find it really weird if they don't print this table. That's pretty bad. I'm going to check it. Okay, so I couldn't find it. That's not good. Are they even allowed to not disclose these investments? I don't know. But again, Palantir has $2.4 billion on their balance sheet in pure cash, no debt. And this was a $400 million investment that they stopped doing. Maybe this is why they stopped disclosing, because there's nothing new added. Like, it's the same as it was before. So maybe they just disclosed what they sold. That's probably the case. But again, this was known and easy to think with. I even did a video calculating out how much they were going to lose on this. So not sure why he's making it into an issue.
as with most things about Palantir, they massage the way that they present information to hide all of the bad things, just delete them, stop showing them, and make up new metrics when old metrics fail. Then there is this ongoing share dilution issue. It is very normal for early stage companies to pay their employees with stock options to hire the best talent for the long term. I get that, but the normal way to do it is to do a whole lot of that sort of thing early on, and then gradually reduce it over time. As your company matures, you need to incentivize people less. You can just pay them actual money. Palantir seems to be doing the opposite. A year ago, in the first 6 months of 2021, they granted 10.1 million RSUs. And I'm looking at the period after they went public because the shares absolutely went bananas at the end of 2020. And in the first 6 months of this year, they have dished out 11.2 million RSUs, so 10% more. The total stock-based compensation was only $145.8 million in Q2, and I say only, but that is an absolutely ridiculously absurd amount of money to be spending on stock-based compensation relative to your revenue at this stage in your growth journey. But
so again, my only problem with this point is this is not new. Anybody who is invested in Palantir knows that they have a very high stock-based compensation. And for me to sell out of a position that I have, a thesis needs to be broken. Something has to come up that shows that the earlier theory was completely wrong. And just because they had high stock compensation and they continue to have high stock compensation, it is less. And they predicted that it would, be less year over year. And they will be phasing it out, and it is less, so they're keeping that promise, but it's still very high. But look at Snowflake. It's one of their top competitors. They have equally gigantic amount stock-based compensation. It's like 50% of their amount of revenue was something that they gave as stock-based compensation to their people, which is even more nuts than Palantir. So don't know what the issue is.
That number is much lower than it would be because the share price for Palantir has recently collapsed. The bigger problem for Palantir, other than all of these things, really is with the actual business performance. Their business was expanding beyond the US for the last few years, trying to grow outside of their start that they had with the US government and going into commercial. But all of that has now reversed. After Alex Karp has repeatedly been saying that every country in the world that isn't the United States sucks, for some weird reason.
Where did he say this in the earnings call? Please, someone direct me to it. I don't believe he said this in the earnings call.
That is completely unfathomable. The global business for Palantir has stopped growing. How very strange. So now they're becoming more concentrated on the US market, which they're portraying as a good thing and as part of the strategy, as though that was the intention all along, which is...
Okay, where did they do this again in the earnings call? And I just want to say one thing. So the international sales and the international government sales was never going good for them. I remember 2 earnings call ago, they were talking about how they need to hire salespeople and how they're trying to debug how to sell to European governments more and European companies more. So he's making it sound like that they were really expanding and then now the expansion went to shit, whereas they were really struggling outside the US. And yes, they had a bad quarter, but again, is this enough to break your thesis?
Obviously complete bullshit, because they were saying the exact opposite for the last couple of years, and it's just a function. The whole reason that they are stopping selling outside the US is just a function of their CEO being an asshole.
Where did they say in the earnings call that they're stopping sales outside the US? I don't remember this. I don't know what he's talking about.
Palantir boasted about hiring a whole load of sales staff back in Q3 and Q4 on the earnings call. In some of the presentations, they grew their sales team, for example, from 12 to 80 at the end of 2021, and they said that they planned to continue hiring aggressively into Q1. But on the earnings call we've just had, Alex Karp said that they only had 41 trained sales staff. So did they hire aggressively like they said they would? Did they fire for some reason half of their sales staff? Or does their sales staff training take over a year to complete?
The later, and he even said this in the earnings call. So again, I'm not sure why he's making a point out of it.
I don't know, because I haven't seen anything at all mentioned about the sales staff ever since they were proudly boasting about those numbers. Just another one of those examples. And their sales pipeline is failing in the meantime. 12 months ago, their total outstanding deal value was $3.4 billion. Now that number is $3.5 billion. And the total outstanding deal value is the sum of all the work that they've already sold or that they expect to sell in the future. So I'm not sure what all of those sales staff are doing, but
I'm glad you mentioned this. So there's a very common misunderstanding that I want to show you regarding the salespeople. And that is that the new customers are buying very, very little from Palantir. This is true both for the government and for the commercial side. So here is the chart that I was looking for. This is the US commercial revenue by cohort. And you can see that the customers that bought for 7 million in 2018, those were the customers that came in 2018. You can see it here. They bought for 10 million the next year. Whereas the customers who came in 2019, they bought for 19 million. And guess what? They bought for 69 the year after. And the year after, they bought for 102 million. So some salesperson added 19 million, which grew to 102 million later. So that means that if their sales team is doing exceptional, where you would see that is by them adding a number of customers who are going to go through this scale. So it's very, very foolish to think that just because they have salespeople, they're going to add billions to the revenue in the current quarter. What you want to see is the number of customers going up, and you want to see their net retention staying the same as it has been, because then as the years go by, their revenue is going to skyrocket. And this metric that he says, this money left to delivered, I don't know exactly how they count it. They have like little asterisks to it, and it says it doesn't include a lot of things, and it doesn't include this and that. And I don't think that it's a reliable metric. So what you want to see is a growth in the number of customers.
They are not selling. According to Alex Karp, Palantir has no competition. And
so this they are not selling, I think they grew the number of customers by over 100% year over year. So based on what is he saying that the sales team is not selling? And Snowflake, which is a direct competitor to Palantir, has 50% of their workforce as salespeople. And I believe it's something like 2,200 people, whereas Palantir has only 30 trained salespeople. And they're growing the number of customers, which I just explained to you is the most important thing and what you want to see, by over 100% year over year. So what is he talking about?
Every other company absolutely sucks in comparison. In fact, there is just no comparison. And even their customers and potential customers also suck because they don't understand the full potential of Palantir systems. Alex Karp pretty much, not quite in those words, but to exactly that point, made those statements in previous earnings call. And for some reason, Nobody is queuing outside the Palantir Denver HQ buying their software, and the sales staff can't seem to sell it either. The fact that the total outstanding deal value has been flat for 12 months indicates that the earnings in the next 2 to 3 years are likely to suffer significantly more than what they are currently presenting. And after saying that they will easily smash their 30% growth per year target every single quarter previously, Palantir have quietly deleted that pledge from their Q2 report, and their guidance this year is for only 23.5%, 3 months after they said they'd hit 30. Somebody tried to ask a question about this on the earnings call, but Alex Karp rudely interrupted him before banging the table with his fist. He talked a whole load of nonsense and then said that he still thinks they will hit 30% growth through to 2025.
Again, which earnings call was he watching? I did watch this. I think Alex Karp answered it perfectly. He said that yes, this was deleted, but he's still going for this target. And he said that what we see is the lumpiness of the government contract. And this has happened before. It's going to happen in the future. And he said if you look 10 years backwards, they had over 30% CAGR on the government contracts, but they had years when it was flat because these contracts are so big, that sometimes you need to wait a long time to get these very, very juicy contracts. So for me, he explained it really well. I understood it. And I also understand why, certain people don't like that you have to wait for this. And, it's not a perfectly predictable, graph in the chart. But it was absolutely not a thesis breaker for me.
But if you are absolutely sure that you are going to hit that level of growth, why would you go and delete that statement from your quarterly report?
Yeah, but then why would you say it on the conference call? It's the same thing. It's information that you're giving to investors. So I don't know. I agree it's a bit stupid that they take it away and then he says that they're still going for the 30%. But yeah, they're new to the stock market game and we didn't invest into them because of numbers that they have in the investor presentation.
It was there every single time before. It makes you kind of look like you're full of shit. The company's own projections are showing a massive slowdown in growth in Q3 and Q4. Their focus is once again on the US government. That's all they really talked about on the earnings call yesterday. Nothing about the rest of the world, nothing about commercial, which is, it's a good long-term way to earn money.
Again, which conference call was he watching? Yes, there was talk about the US government because that's where the main slowdown was in the company. But they were also talking about how crazy good the US commercial is doing. And that sector of Palantir is actually doing really good. They added a ton of customers. It was very rapid sales growth and they were just doing good. So I don't know which conference call he's talking about.
The US government is reliable. There's nothing particularly wrong with it. But the US government is not going to grow the Palantir revenue by 200% in the next 3 years. And all the evidence at the moment is pointing to a slowdown instead. This year, Palantir is projecting revenue to grow at 23%. Last year, it was 41%, and the year before that, it was 47%. If you zoom out, the numbers just don't look good, and the total outstanding deal value is the same now as it was 12 months ago. So the future numbers are likely to look even worse. There is absolutely no indication in the data the growth next year will suddenly jump up. I'm just not seeing where it comes from unless they magic something up in the next quarter or two. The numbers might go up, I don't know, but projecting that the numbers would definitely go up, for me, would be investing based on hopium. Let's give Palantir the benefit of the doubt. Let's say that they hit their 1.9 billion target for the year. And next year, despite what the numbers are saying, let's say they hit 26% level of growth. And then that rate of growth will naturally taper because it has been and because the company is maturing. There's less potential governments that you can sell to. There's only one US government around. Then let's assume that their gross margin grows steadily as a scale, blah, blah, blah. Give them some benefits of doubt. The valuation of a company like Palantir is massively dependent and susceptible to the rate of growth that you plug into the assumptions in a DCF model. Stick in 30 or 40% growth, for example, and you will get a target price of $50 or $60. But if that growth rate is more like 23% like it is this year and dropping, then the target share price very quickly drops to $20. And over the last few quarters, I've been highlighting.
So I agree with him that the growth is a very big part of the projection of Palantir. And for me, it's not proven yet that they have a massive slowdown and they're never going to go back to over 30% growth. But A 20% stock target. It's currently at 8% and he showed up to 2023 or sorry, 2025. So you're saying that in 2025, it's going to be $20 even with your pessimistic calculations, and it's currently $8 and that's somehow a bad deal? I mean, that's like 100% in more than 100% in 3 years, and that's a more than 33% per year. How's that a bad deal?
This risk and how outstanding deal value is by far the most important number in the quarterly reports. And every single time that number is looking worse and worse. That number hasn't moved. For me at the moment, the potential gain compared to the level of risk of Palantir is just not good enough. There are many other growth stocks that have also sold off this year, where the share price has also dipped, but where I see a much better opportunity. The level of risk for Palantir is particularly high in my opinion because they obfuscate the numbers that they report. They repeatedly misrepresent data to make it appear better than it is. Graphs that are not related are printed next to each other to sell a false narrative. Graphs that are suddenly looking worse are being deleted and removed. And new metrics are invented every quarter to replace old metrics that suddenly look much worse. This quarter, they were talking about US total revenue, which they've never mentioned before as a single figure. As an investor in the business, I want to know what is actually happening in the company, truthfully. If it's good, tell me it's good. If it's bad, I also want to know that it's bad. I do not want a cheesy salesman tactic of trying to pretend, stick fingers in your ears, go la la la, that things are good when they are not. And I also think there is a very high risk of having a CEO who openly slags off his own biggest customers publicly. A CEO who seems to hate half of the world and thinks that every country that is in the United States sucks. And a CEO who seems to be praying for World War III to start, as that's about the only thing that's going to save Palantir's collapsing growth rate.
Anyways, so if he honestly believes that he has a better risk reward in another stock and that's where his money should be, so be it. For me, the main thing is that yes, it was not the best quarter for Palantir and the company is not doing as good as what I would hope. But did they break the thesis of why I invested into them? No. So I am definitely not selling the shares. You heard my opinions about, this guy's opinions, and I don't really see what he saw. And you can comment in the comment section below if you saw the earnings call where Karp was praying for World War III and called every other country stupid. And anyways, if you watched this far, you are awesome. I love you, and I will see you in the next video. Ciao, ciao.